what excites you?
Look, you still be asking me that. I'm
Because I
on my
still,
now. So you're like, so what do you really want to do? Like we know what
yeah.
to do, but what are you looking for? I think I echo what you say. Of course, you know that one of my emerging leadership roles, and I feel like it was a pivot for me, is when I joined the GB leadership
Mm-hmm.
team. Because I was one of those people that's like, I want to do my 8 and skate. When I get to work, I don't want to be on no other teams. I want to be in no leadership. I just want to do my job and go home. But when I got into that capacity, what was a mindset shift for me was how I saw how I could motivate other people to
Mm-hmm.
bring out their strengths and to push past
Mm-hmm.
their zones. And it was through learning
Right.
and talking to
Mm-hmm.
them. It was through building rapport. It was through me not having a passport. And I shared that, right? For one of my biggest takeaways from my time was one of my team members, and I had this passport situation, y'all. Listen, I got it together, but my passport was expiring, and I just mentioned it, right? Just in passing, in
Mm-hmm.
conversation. And it sparked a whole relationship between the two of us, and we got to just a level of connection that we wouldn't have got to if I was
Mm-hmm.
just never sharing anything, right? Like, so what you said was really important in terms of you don't have to tell everybody what you did last weekend or your deepest,
Mm-hmm.
darkest secrets, but there are some things that you should share just to bring humanization to you as a leader,
Yeah.
those that are around you, and you can find connections because her husband wasn't able to go on their trip because his passport was expired. And then, like,
See.
7 months later, her son was in the same position. His passport was expired. So it just kept becoming like
Mm-hmm.
an
Mm-hmm.
ongoing connecting conversation between the two of us. But it was just off of something that was totally random, but it also planted a seed for our connection. And
Yeah.
I began to be able to lean on her and pull out her strengths and empower her to
Mm-hmm.
do more just
Love
based
that.
off because she
Yeah.
also too was like, I'm on a team, I want to help, but I don't want to be in front, right? If nobody wants to be the face, nobody
Yeah.
wants to raise their hand. And
Yeah.
we just worked our relationship and built rapport and connected and supported each other. And she was really invested. And I'm like, well,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you should do it this time. And she got
Right.
her confidence up to a point where she was able to do it on her own. And it was one of
Good.
those
Love that.
similar to what you're saying is like found what she cared about, right? Like we brought one of her
Mm-hmm.
ideas to life and I went with it first and I rolled it out first and then I was like, I think you should take it over this time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'll be there with you, you know what I'm
Love
saying? It's
that.
rapport building and as well as that support, in those areas that she felt motivated in was something
Mm-hmm.
that I felt helped to grow. And I was like, okay, I think I could be a leader, or it got me more interested.
Yeah.
um, so it's interesting to hear all of the, groundwork that you laid in terms of, DE and I from NAACP perspective to, teaching, learning, orating, standing up in church, talking in front of crowds, how you kind of just naturally hone those skills over time. Whereas I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm a late bloomer, right? I came in my 30s and was like, oh, I want to public speak. Let me go to Toastmasters. I want to lead. Let me volunteer for this group. But it still kind of brings us to an intersection of learning and growing ourselves as well as others. So
Yeah.
I just,
And it's never, I would say it's not about late. It's about being at your time, your right time. Because if you would have tried this a long time ago, it may not have worked out. You may not have been as interested. You may not have had skills that you needed. Like all
oh,
the
maturity, emotional intelligence and maturity was not there. It was not there.
see.
It was not there before, but
Hmm.
that's something that you really need as a leader. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say, I guess I would ask you, how do you feel like that shows up for you in terms of like your emotional intelligence or how you lead in terms of your not your feelings, right? Like the greater goal. Like
Hmm.
how does that show up for you as you're leading? Because you lead different teams. You lead
Yeah,
multiple different.
I do. And uh, it's about what the mission is, right? Because leading a DE&I group of volunteers, It's different than leading a group of children at children's church. It's different than leading employees who are paid to do a job. Like it's different across it. But what's my goal in each area? Right. And it takes some compassion, humanity, of course, across the board, and understanding of what this position brings. For when I was at Walmart, this back when back go back to Walmart, right? When I
Good
was
too.
at Walmart, like this is before, I mean, I wouldn't say before technology, we still had paper. Like you still filled out paper applications at this time. And I'm aging myself when I say this, but when we terminated people, we had these green sheets that we would give them, and we had a pad of green sheets. And I just always had a pad of green sheets because my emotional intelligence was low. But I also was working with my people. It was a lot of us in this
Yeah.
space, and I was the only one of us on this leadership team of managers. And it was I was gonna say I was the only one who could talk reckless to my people. I would say that, right? But I used to get so irritated because I'm like, I'm trying to do my job and then I got to do your job because you don't want to do your job. So I'm trying to manage a department and I got to go push carts because the cart pusher is being lazy and don't want to be here. And I got to go to the front and ring people up because the cashiers are taking their time, sweet time, just scanning people out. We got lines through the back of the store. I got to go up here and be a customer service manager because the customer service managers don't know how to manage their time. I got to go get a fishing license because the guy in hardware is more excited about mixing paints than he is about getting somebody a fishing like there were so many things. And so I got to the point where I used to be like, if I have to do your job, what do I have you here for?
Hmm.
And I used to tell people, stop wasting my payroll. Like that's how emotional intelligence about this big, right?
Ooh.
Just short. But it was also one of those spaces where I didn't recognize that people had a lot they were dealing with outside of just work. Like this cashier isn't necessarily just ringing slow because they just don't feel like getting through these lines. They're sick. I had one, she was pregnant. She was sick her entire pregnancy, right? But she still came to work, but she was sick when she was at work, right? And I'd be like, girl, I can't be up here ringing and doing your job and this, right? And trying to do my job. But it's like, that's that emotional intelligence not like showing up in there. You know, the guy in hardware, it's not that he didn't want to get the fishing license out, it's that he struggled with reading.
Okay.
And it was easier for him to mix paint than it was for him to fill out that fishing license and get it all written up and all of that, right? So that's when you come in that empathetic space. And
How do
so
you
from
like? How did you learn that about them?
girl, first getting into it. I'm being super honest when I say getting into it with a good amount of people. You
Okay.
know, like being frustrated with them and airing that frustration and then it coming out that they're this way because of that. Because, you know, our people, we're prideful. We're not going to say that this
Hmm.
is the case. We're not going to say we don't feel well most of the, well, back then people would be like, I'm sick all the time, right? You know, there's the now in my later years, like being pregnant was a whole thing. Like, ma'am, you just found out and everything about you is about being pregnant at this point, right? How do I navigate that now as a leader? Because I can't be like everything can't be about you being pregnant, right? Can't say that. But back then, like, is she didn't want to share that, or even him, like that's a pride thing. No one wants to say that they struggle with reading, right? It just happened to come out because now you're about to lose your job because your manager is upset because they got to come over here and keep doing this thing. So you got to spit up something, tell us what's going on. But it goes back to building those relationships
Okay.
and knowing people.
Now, so now as a leader, when you're talking about
Yeah.
emotional intelligence or building in empathy into your
Mm-hmm.
strategy based on connecting with those people and learning more
Yeah.
about them. So you
Correct.
giving them soft space to land if you need to come and tell you something, or you're
Mm-hmm.
learning more about them so that your worldview of them is a little bit wider. So you have a little more
Oh yeah,
empathy.
absolutely. I'm very intentional. You have to be intentional about it too. I can do it. I say I do it easy because I care about people. I know people leaders who they don't have that kind of care bone. Not bad,
Yeah.
you know, just some people that like some people got style, some people don't. Some people have a care bone, some people don't. But being very in they have to be very intentional in scheduling that time. But in my one, I am intentional about my one-on-ones. We always have one-on-ones. If I cancel a one-on-one, that's because I it was necessary that I had to cancel, or I at least try to move it. But we spend a good amount of our time in our one-on-ones talking and
Okay.
getting to know each other and having conversations, not just sitting there saying, "What are you doing? What's on your workload?" And if they start going there, I start bringing it back. I have one, as soon as I say, "What's going on with you?" They start running down their list of stuff that they're working on. I'm like, "All right, so what you do this weekend?"
An approach of using your one-on-one time to actually build that connection and that rapport.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody isn't one of those types of people, what would you what strategy would you recommend them implement, or what is something that they could probably start to implement in their leadership style that could help them to build rapport with, maybe
Mm-hmm.
they're coming on as a new leader, or they've been a leader, but that's one of those feedback things that they've been getting, they can't really connect that well
Yeah.
with their team. Like, what's a strategy that you feel like would be good for a new leader in that role?
My first one is always keep your one-on-ones.
Okay.
Have that intentional time with each of your direct reports.
How often
And
do you one on one? Is it like a weekly, bi-weekly, as needed, once a month? Like, what does that
mine are
look like?
weekly.
Okay.
Mine are weekly because one, I do need to know what you're doing each week. Okay, your girl needs to know. Two, we're in a remote environment, so I don't see my people face to face. This is our time to see each other face to face, and I have to be very on that because it's not like I'm gonna pass them in the hallway. It's not like they're gonna walk into my office. So I have to find and carve out time to see them. And when you're in that time, you're focused on them. It's so easy sitting at the computer that I do all. I find myself sometimes somebody send me a message and I look at my messenger and I'm like, is that important? Do I need to answer that now or can that wait? Making sure I'm putting myself in meeting, make sure I'm devoted to them. I learned this from someone that I was like, this is really weird that they had to do this. Like they're not an extrovert, which I find myself, I'm an extrovert, so these things come a little bit easier for me. They're not extroverted leaders. So they have to be very intentional about how they show up to care and to ask questions. So they make sure that one every week they ask like about something that they talked about the week before. So if we were talking about how we were planning a trip to Mexico, then the next week they were like, how'd your planning for your trip to Mexico go? Or if they don't have anything they've talked about, they'll try to recall something like, do they have a brother? Do they have a sister? You know, have they talked about their mother, their father? And they'll ask about that family member. So, how's your mother doing? How's your father doing? You know, get them kind of going on that. If they have a hobby, they'll ask how that's going. You know, I'm not a big pet person, but I know people on my team who have pets that I will definitely ask.
Pets and babies are conversation starters for sure.
Yeah. They'll get it flowing, right? And get people comfortable. Also, on my team meetings are more like powwows than team meetings.
Okay.
So I spend a few minutes saying, okay, hey, y'all, this is what needs to happen. Or I do as much of that as I can. Like, this is what needs to happen. This is what we're working on. Here are some good things to keep in mind. And then I start building in things for us to talk about, for them to engage, right? You're not going to sit here for an hour and just listen at me. I'm asking them questions. I'm asking them about their projects. I'm calling them out about projects we've talked about. I'm making them brag on themselves in the meeting. I'm asking, hey, here's a problem that we have. How would you guys want to solve that as a team? Because that gets their juices going and they feel very involved and engaged. And then they get to talk to each other, engage what others are doing. And then when it's time for support, they know who to contact. So they know who their AI experts are. They know who their techie people are. They know who their writers are.
I love that. And I feel like the time with I feel like the question was one of the things that I just took away from your conversation, and saying like,
Mm-hmm.
this is a problem that we're having. How would y'all solve this, right? Because now it's like everybody feels connected to whatever it is,
Oh
and they
yeah.
are to help solve in some way. And the
Mm-hmm.
answer involved during the conversation. I also love that you make people brag on themselves. I feel like that's something that is really important in terms of leadership, like calling out strengths, but also helping people to own their own strengths
Oh
and
yeah.
confidence and self esteem to be like, I did this and it was awesome in front of a group, you know what in front of your
Mhm.
people. That's who you want the most respect from. One other thing that I feel like you did in our leadership calls was you had segments for everybody to participate in the meeting. Like we
Mhm.
all prepared to the meeting because we knew that this is your time to say everything that you're doing. If it's a win, if it's a brag, if you want to shout someone else out on your team, because you can big up, the people on your.
Mhm.
I felt like that was something that helped us to be more engaged in terms of our team meetings as well, right? We didn't just show up,
Mhm.
didn't want to show up and throw up because, right, this is a group of your peers. So we all came prepared and we also got to reflect on what has been
Mhm.
going well or challenges or help we could call out and say like we need some volunteers, like anybody on your team, or if anybody has bandwidth, we would love help with X, Y, and Z, or input or contribution. So I definitely feel like those
Mhm.
are really good strategies from like a one-on-one perspective as well as a team perspective to just keep people engaged in the process because we
Mhm.
are virtual. It's so easy for everybody to check out and multitask and
Oh
scroll
yeah.
and talk and all that. But if I know that during this hour call, at some point, Erin is going to call my name and ask me something because every
I
meeting
will.
you show everybody attention. And I think that's what's important because everybody feels connected to
Mhm.
you, to the mission, to the meeting, and they got to be on their P's and Q's. So, yeah, I think that's
Right.
good. Those are good takeaways.
I'm gonna put a
Um,
shameless plug here because I would say I'm on a mission, a revolt, whatever you want to call it. Y'all, I know it's easy to do these meetings without your camera on. Turn your camera on.
what
Turn your camera on. Get up. Let's back up a bit. Get up and get ready for work.
from the all you gotta
At
do is
least from the waist up.
all you gotta
Look,
do is
I got a pair of leggings on now. You don't know that.
got on
Right,
shorts.
but like, you see what I mean? Like from the now, I try to be. I make sure that I look. I'll put on an outfit. I'll try to
Aaron
be
look good.
coordinated.
I'm gonna tell you this.
Okay,
Aaron look good every meeting. She's on
I
camera.
am
The hair is done.
every
The
single
glasses
time.
are matching the fit. The
Yes,
background
yes.
is giving. We will say that Aaron don't play when it comes
I
to that
don't.
camera. Don't play.
I don't. Look, and it was not I'm brag on myself a little bit, but at one point I want to say just joined the team. I had been with my team for about a year and they were like, Aaron, you are always so put together. Like you always have lipstick on, your hair is always done. And I'm like, well, number one, I pay good money for this lipstick, so I'm going to wear it. Two, this what you're supposed to do when you come to work. You're supposed to be presentable for the world. What are we doing? Don't tell me no more that you haven't showered yet. I don't care. I can't smell you. I'm not looking at you. I didn't know until you said something. But the fact that you have gotten up to come to work and you have not showered shows me that you're not prepared. But either way it goes, being on camera in meetings, and I am a good one that I will be the only one on camera. I'm okay with that being the only one on camera. If you worried
Yeah.
about being on camera, practice. Stare at yourself in the frame then and talk to yourself on a meeting. But look, being ready, being camera ready, being on camera helps you be intentional, helps you be focused, helps you engage with others. It's easier to have a meeting and a conversation with people you're looking at versus being tuned out because your camera is off and you're just staring at people's pictures.
So I want to listen. Let's double click into that because I do
Yeah.
feel like that was a game changer for me. Right when we first went home, because prior to the world
Mm-hmm.
changing, shifting a little bit for the better. I ain't mad at the remote, but you
Right.
had to be a person, right? You had to show up. You had to get dressed every day.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to me working in tech, I had to dress business casual every day. I could not wear jeans
Yeah.
to work, so I had to dress up every day. And in turn, you had to do your
Mm-hmm.
hair. You had to make sure your face, you washed it. You know what I'm saying? All of
Yeah.
those things going into the remote work, specifically, I'm in more of a technical side of things, right? So a lot of the people that I work with are more introverted. And that started to become a trend in terms of nobody being on camera. So I got
Mhm.
used like I got used I started to feel uncomfortable sometimes when I would come on camera because I would be the only person on camera or nobody really wanted to come on camera. So you'll be just, you just be sitting there and then it's just like, oh
Mhm.
well, I could just go off. But when I would go off camera, I never was giving the meat and my
No.
undivided. I
Correct.
never I'm never really giving the meat and my undivided attention if I'm not on camera. So that was also
Same.
something that I had to learn and grow myself into. I feel like everybody will. I don't know. You weren't remote prior to 2020, were you?
No, actually, my job when COVID hit, they furloughed our team because they weren't doing any training because we weren't in person. And then when they brought us back, we did a hybrid of remote where they still had to come into the office, but they sat at desk,
Hmm.
social distance, and I talked through a camera. But if anything happened, I could get up and walk to you,
Yeah.
type deal. It wasn't until I transitioned to Genesis in 2021
Mhm.
that I went fully remote. But even with
You
that,
was that was that like an intentional decision that you made when you came to Genesis? Like, I'm gonna do all of my meetings full camera. Was it something since you had already did hybrid that was just something that you was already grown accustomed to, and you just kept it throughout, whether people were on camera or not? You just did it yourself.
yes. So I was already used to being on camera. Let's go back to them childhood days. My daddy had a camera. He had a camcorder and he used to set his camcorder up all the time. We got VHSs for days of us just being in front of a camera. So Aaron was used to being in front of a camera. And then being in training and learning development, I was teaching on this camera. So I always had to be camera ready. So when I transitioned to remote work, I still had a little PTSD that I always had to be available. So I was always on camera to let them know that I was here and ready to work. But it
Okay.
was also a way to engage because
Hmm.
it's like I like having conversations where I'm sitting with people and I'm looking at them.
Yes,
It's so much
absolutely.
easier to do that. I can read facial expressions, I can read body language. I know if they're joking or not joking. It also helps people, they're not as bold when they have to look at you.
Face to face, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a different
It's
energy.
a different feeling.
I think that so that's a good point that you had already been kind of conditioned to do that because I feel
Mhm.
like I had to recondition myself because again, my leadership was a little more, I feel like the culture that we were in was
Mhm.
you did not have to turn your camera on. Just like right
Oh,
now,
you didn't?
culture is you don't have to go into the office, but they want you to go in
Mhm.
the office. You ain't got to. Right. So
Right.
but honestly, I feel like I had to do a reframe of my working style and my discipline when I
Mhm.
to remote because it is easy to roll out of bed and hop on a meeting every day. It
Oh,
is
yeah.
easy to be off camera and to not really be engaged and then you leave and you don't really know what you're supposed to be doing because your camera was
Mhm.
doing 10 different things and bringing it back to G Beam. I feel like I keep bringing it back to G Beam, but
Mhm.
that was something I ran into as a leader. Nobody on my team meetings wanted to come on camera. Like we
See.
had our meeting, and I was like, reframe my mind into I'm
Mhm.
gonna be on camera every meeting because this is how I hold myself accountable. That was my
Yeah.
point of being on camera in my
Mhm.
meetings. Don't get me wrong. We all work from home. Sometimes you got an 8 a.m. meeting. I might not have showered before that 8 a.m. meeting, but I wash my face, I brush my teeth. I got my fake glasses on, so I look alert, and I got me a
Yeah.
jacket or top or something that I have that makes me look like I'm
Mhm.
or it shows that I actually made some type of
Yeah.
effort. I got my coffee, it's just early in the morning, but I had to start to get in the mind frame of staying on camera throughout
Mhm.
the entire time and not multitasking because I also work in a capacity where you can get a technology question at any point
Mhm.
or it's fire drills happening everywhere, but like you said, just staying grounded in the conversation,
Mhm.
staying on camera, engaging, nodding, showing that you are actually listening because we'll have meetings, 45-minute meeting, and you don't even get to talk. So it's like, what's the point of being on camera? But you are more accountable and you're more intentional
Yeah.
engaging, asking questions
Mhm.
if you on camera.
And now you can refer to what James said 20 minutes ago when he was asking the question, right? You can answer that question because you knew what was going on. And
Or
I'm a
if you get called out, you're like, oh, hey, well, I've been here. At least you know that I've been listening. I'm
yeah,
there versus if you're not, and you scrambling to get off
to
mute or
figure it
whatever.
out. Yeah. And I feel that wholeheartedly. I think that the way you work is the way you show up to work. So there is, and don't get me wrong, we have no meeting Fridays. So on my team, you block your calendar on Fridays, and that is your day to like everything you couldn't do during the week, get your stuff done.
That's another gem for y'all leaders.
Right? Get yourself. Now I know. First of all, who wants to do a meeting on Friday? Second, who wants to do an afternoon meeting on Friday? Like you just want to kind of like decompress from the week, and that's okay. And for me, I use that as that's the day that I don't put on my makeup, and I don't make sure I'm not intentionally making sure I'm presentable because I'm literally sitting at my computer with my head down working on the things that I couldn't get done throughout the week. So I say that with the caveat that there are some days that you're going to be like that, but the rest of the time, it is about how you feel when you work. And if you're not ready and presented for the world, you're not going to show up like that when it comes to work. So get up, get dressed, brush your teeth, fix your face, fix your hair, put on something nice, put on your little jams. Like I'm known for jamming out while I'm working too in between my meetings to get your mood together so that you show up as your best self because people see you like that. Not to mention just seeing you like that, they get to know you,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Well, I really feel like that. Again, this is so funny that we're talking about this because I'm thinking about my journey and honestly, that camera thing is really a real thing because it is how people
Uh-huh.
get to, because it's like, I could see she always well put together, or like, oh, you got a new hairstyle. That's my thing. Like, if you see me,
Yeah.
this meeting, if we have a meeting once a month,
Yeah.
next time you see me,
My hair
I
could be
might
different.
somebody different. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So that's even just like as you're saying, like, oh, you get to learn what people care about. You get to
Yeah.
learn how people are utilizing their time or things that are of interest to them. And I want to like before we move on from this, I wanted to talk one more time about like just the intentionality of the one-on-one. I had
Hmm.
a introverted manager that used to use that same strategy that you talked about earlier, and we just started to bond over concerts, right? So we started,
Hmm.
that's one of my core hobbies, interests, things that I love to do outside of everything else.
Yeah.
So we started every time like we would connect on that, or I feel like he used to keep notes. He was a really good note taker from
Hmm.
all of our calls, but it wasn't just like the things that I was supposed to be getting accomplished. It was also the things that I said I was gonna do. I was going on a trip,
Hmm.
nephew. I was doing this for my family. Like, so he would
Hmm.
refer back to previous conversations or remember those things about me. And it did help me to feel more comfortable to open up in times that it wasn't as comfortable to open up. It helped me to be
Hmm.
more vulnerable because I didn't feel like it was all right or wrong. Let's get down to business. Did you get this?
Right.
It was like, we got to talk
Hmm.
about a little bit before we warmed up. But I know
Yeah.
we're still talking about leadership, and
Yeah.
I know that it requires like a mix of future forward thinking and people first values. I feel like you stood firmly in both of those, but I want to know what a
Hmm.
leadership decision you had to make recently that really required you to use courage over comfort. Like a decision
Oh,
had to that you've had to make. I feel like you're one of those bold people in a room or on the camera. So what
period.
like that you say has had you to do that?
Yeah. I had a team member who was in the wrong position. Like they just weren't the role that they were in, they weren't performing. And it wasn't because they weren't a good person. It was because they were in the wrong role. Like this just wasn't for them. And being a person, like I'm looking at what my team is supposed to be doing, the value they're supposed to be bringing to the business. And if this person cannot help us bring value to the business, then either A, I need to get this person up to speed on bringing value, or B, we need to figure out if there's somewhere else for you to be passionate. And that's a hard decision or a tough thing for leaders to do. And how I look at it is it's considering that person. So where are you going to find your passion? And we had started off with conversations when we joined forces, right? When they came onto my team. I am very, 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 very much so a believer in expectations. You cannot expect somebody to act a certain way, to fulfill certain obligations, to do certain tasks if you've never set those expectations out before them. So I am very, as a leader, that's the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about what's your expectations in this role? What do I expect of you? What do you expect of yourself? And at the end of the day, what should be done? Right. We did that. And at the end of the year now, here we are, and those things aren't happening.
Mhm.
So now we have to talk about, okay, what was the problem? Is it the skill or the will? Is it that you don't have the skills to do it, which we've been working all year? You're supposed to have the experience in it based on your resume, based on the amount of time you've been with the company, based on other leaders you've had. You should have these skills. Like, are you willing to do it? Do you want to do it? Are you passionate about doing it? And if not, what are you passionate about? And what we found out is that they weren't as passionate about doing the job that they were in. They were actually passionate about doing something else. And that's definitely okay. And find your joy where you need to. Now, that did mean, and they didn't want to say so, because that would mean if I'm passionate about doing something else and there's no role in doing what I'm passionate about, does that mean that I now not have a job? Right? Which to me, I'm like, I mean, maybe depends on what the business looks like, but I never know that if you don't say anything. Right. So then it took us having to figure out what other capacity could they work in. Now, me being the bold person I am, I made moves on getting this person in a different position before I even talked to my leadership. Because I'm like, this is my team. We're going to figure this out. But what it led to is me making a move on people. When I say situation that I didn't think would move if I didn't move. So if I had not taken the steps, I don't think it would have went anywhere.
As a leader, obviously you want to support your people, right? So we're talking about
Mhm.
like first mentality, but you also, as the leader, are accountable for the results and the outcomes
Mhm.
of your team. Um, what made you want to help them find a role versus saying like you might need to start looking other places because the hens are going to come home to roost soon if
Mhm.
you don't perform in this role? Like, how
Because
do you?
I care about my people. Ultimately, everything that I do, all of the work that I do, I'm in learning and development because I am passionate about people being successful. I'm passionate about you doing a really great job so that you can support yourself, so that you can put a roof over your head, so that you can feed yourself, so you can take care of your family, so you can change your life. We talk about how in tech roles in tech help change people's lives. Like, I am passionate about all those things. And that doesn't stop. So if I have someone who now you're in a position where you're not happy with your job, but you still need to support yourself. I'm going to do everything I can to help you find something within reason to support yourself.
So does I guess, and this might be a redundant question, right?
Yeah.
But does making a decision like that, right? So I know that obviously you kind of have foresight to be like, let me try to find you a role outside of this. Does that ever put you at risk or put you in a bind with your leadership team in terms of, you know what I'm saying? Like, now you are short staffed one person because this person is leaving the team, or because maybe they would have wanted that person to be let go and you were like, I'm going to do something contrary. Or I mean, I know that it's easier to ask for forgiveness
Hmm.
and permission in that circumstance, but I'm just saying, like, like, is that something that will put you at risk as a leader if you are, I guess, making decisions that might not always be in the
Hmm.
best interest of the team or the business, or
Hmm.
so
Well, I maintain the mentality that people aren't here to stay with me.
that's
So
a That's a good one. That's a good. I
They're
feel like
not.
that's something leaders need to
Mhm,
have in
mhm.
their mindset, because a lot of people think that a tenure is like 5 to 7 years. And it's like, no, I feel
Mm-mm.
like after 3 years, I want you to fly and to go into like
Yeah,
once you've gotten what you needed, or if I see that you're ready, I want you to
exactly.
versus keep you on my team. Like some people want to keep you on their team so that they know that they have a good team, because the way you perform is a reflection of them, right?
And then they have some kind of like hatred against you when you decide you want to leave. No, my role is for you to come on my team. You help us do what we want to do. I do what I can to pour into you to help you develop. But at a certain point, you've developed past me, and it's time for you to do something different. So I'm very involved in what my people want to do in their career path. We have conversations about where you trying to go, what are you passionate in, what are you trying to do. I'm on the lookout. If I hear something, if I see something, then I'm sharing that because I want you to soar as well. Because again, your job is what helps support you. Your job is what you spend more time at work than you do mostly anywhere else. For the most part, you might as well be happy here. There's no point. We've all seen the people who are unhappy at work because they show up unhappy. I don't
Yeah.
want anybody to be unhappy in their role, so I'm helping you to be happy. And so that means that I am always, as a leader, thinking about, okay, if this person leaves, what do I need to do? You don't have to get ready if you stay ready. If you are always, if you have the mindset that your people have the ability to go do something else or be someone different or develop and grow past you, then you're ready to bring in new people consistently to help benefit. Plus, that helps you because you may have someone that they're really good at writing, but now I don't really need a writer because I have AI. AI will write for me. But what I do need is I need a content curator. So now I got to find somebody with the skills to be a content curator. So either I'm evolve this writer into a content curator, or I'm evolve this writer on up out of here and bring me in a content curator. But that's just not my mindset. Now I got to manage up and I got to make that mindset the leaders above me of them too. So I consistently have conversations with my leaders about the people on my team to let them know like this is what this person is doing, this is where we want to go. They know where I'm trying to go, what I'm trying to do. So when I brought up the conversation about the team member who I was like, it's not working, I was able to connect the dots as to why it wasn't working and what we needed from that person. And then we were able to like figure out a game plan of where they could go, what they can do, what could happen, but it's knowing what you want from your team members, what they are passionate about, and what you're trying to get out of the business. Now, does this always work? No, because sometimes you can offer everything to someone as an opportunity to move them to something they're more passionate about. And either A, the more passion is not here, so they have to go do it on their own somewhere, or you have to put them out to go
Yeah.
find their joy somewhere else because it's just not working. That's one thing I hate to do. I'd rather you find your joy before I have to put you out to go find your joy. But also, as people, we got to understand that it's business.
So I feel like, okay, so I want to transition into a few of my signature segments, and the first one is
Ooh,
you got your tea with you. But
yeah.
I feel like you've been like a super outspoken person, so this might not even be a
Mm.
question that's like so, profound for you. But what is a turning point in your career, or a situation where you knew you had to use your voice differently, right? Like where you knew like
Mm.
I kind of got to be this person in this situation, or I have to show up, in a different way.
I would say it was my transition. I want to say my transition to adulthood when it came to professionalism, but it has using my voice. I'll say that. So you probably can't tell it here, but I have my purple hair. That has been my signature for years. It has been my thing. I'm gonna say at least 15 years. I know this goes back to, I'll never forget watching Jenny Mai on ETV and she was doing her fashion show. This back when she was first starting out on television. and she had blue highlights. And I was like, I love that. I would love to do something like that, but I don't want to do blue. And pink is too bright. What if I try purple? And I tried one purple piece and I loved it. And it stuck with me ever since. Right. But in my previous role, in my previous company, they were very conservative, and having purple hair was not shined upon as like professional. And I had purple in my hair. I wore novelty tees and sneakers. Like, I'll put a skirt on, but I'd have a novelty tee on and some sneakers, right? And they were like, oh,
Still your look. That's still your look.
it is still my look. I'm Converse all the time. Like, I will definitely rock that outfit. But that is not. They were very much a shirt and tie type of company. And I remember them telling me that the reason that I wasn't able to progress into being a professional development trainer is because my look wasn't very professional. Now, I could train my butt off,
Mm,
but my look wasn't as professional. And I remember in certain spaces I would like hide my purple, or I would take it out for certain events so I looked more professional for that space. And at one point I just got tired of it, and my I had a conversation with my boss and I was like, okay, so this is where I'm struggling, because we're supposed to be a come as you are company. They preach about it all the time, but they want you to come as they think you're supposed to be. I said, so I put purple in my hair, but you dye your hair red. That's not your natural color. Our director, she highlights her hair blonde. That's not her natural color. It's other people in this company that dye their hair. It's not their natural color. So why is it that I'm being called out about it? Right? Because it wasn't a traditional color. For the SVP over HR to come to the office to visit one day, I didn't take my purple out. I wasn't doing it. It was going to be what it was. And what did she say? I love the purple in your hair. And I was
oh
like,
wow.
thank you. I was like, I'm glad you said that, because some people don't like it. No, I love it. Don't change it. The next time she came to visit, guess what she had? Little purple blonde highlights.
Oh
What? You see,
wow.
well, yes. And it was because I chose not to do that. And so ever
Mhm.
since then, I'm like, no, you're going to get all this millennial manager. You're going to give me because me having purple hair, or me being, I don't want to say eccentric, but me wearing a novelty tee and sneakers and a skirt, that doesn't change who I am. That doesn't change the knowledge. That doesn't change the value that I bring to the company. It's an expression of who I am. But it's just like, you wearing there's someone that just braids their beard, same thing. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody thinks of you any less. You got a pop collar, you got a perm, a curly perm. Like, nobody thinks of you any less.
Well, and I think that that's a ongoing thing, right? Like I feel like we're making a lot of strides in terms of,
Yeah.
how people show up in the workplace, but I do think it's an ongoing thing, and I feel like our
Hmm.
hair is over policed
All the
um
time.
all the time. I'm currently just always nervous to show up with braids, right? And this is me,
Hmm.
my self-expression. This is like what is easiest for me, is what's most comfortable for me, how I feel confident. It's like, why do I have to show up in a way that makes somebody else comfortable?
Right. You're
And
not
it's
trying to be
still,
comfortable to me.
yeah, but it's nobody cares about making me comfortable. I feel like, yeah, it is needed in the workplace. I faced that when I first got into corporate. I mean, I've been working in different spaces. Again, I was business casual a lot of the times before, so you definitely feel like you gotta mute yourself when you come to
Hmm.
work. I am happy that it's changing and I can
Hmm.
get closer to myself again. I feel like post COVID, that was like when I just started getting all of the I don't care, because it's like I'm just showing up on camera. I want to wear my hair how I want to wear my hair every day.
Hmm.
Cause again, I wasn't even on camera sometimes. So I'm like, I'm going on vacation. I'm getting my hair how I want it to be. I don't care
Right.
how people feel about it at work, but I was spoken to by different men at work when I first started in corporate about my hair. And it was very interesting because they had wild hair and wild beard,
Mm.
looked
Hmm.
very, but they were concerned about me having braids. Like, oh,
Right.
a lot of different microaggressions. about different things. So I definitely think that that is near and dear to all of the little Black girls' hearts when we
Oh
talk
yeah.
about, doing up and advocating for yourself, especially in terms of
Hmm.
your hair.
All right.
Something that's so important to us outside of work. So to get here and, get it policed, it's like I definitely got to advocate for myself.
Oh
And I
yeah.
feel like
Advocate.
growing your network of mentors and leaders and other people that are sure of themselves in this space is something that helps you to
Hmm.
become more certain and sure or confident or know what your yeses are and what your nos are, because I don't think you know
Hmm.
that. But like, what's one intentional way you've grown your network that's shaped your leadership? Because I feel like that's something that's helping me to shape my leadership when I network and
Hmm.
mentor about other leaders. What's one thing that you've been intentional about
Getting
that's helped you?
involved. Getting involved. Look, I know you said it that I just want to come to work, and this is a mindset for a lot of people. I just want to come to work. I just want to do my job. I just want to go home. I want to clock in. I want to clock out. Guess what? Don't nobody know you when you clock in, clock out. You don't get access to the. I had more doors open for me as a leader at GBeam than I did in my actual role. I
Yeah.
met more people being a leader of GBeam than in my, and that's just this what we've been talking about. But in so many spaces, when you get involved with things that are outside of your role, you meet so many people. You get access to different opportunities because when you're just about your role, you're waiting on your leader to get you access to something. You're waiting on something to show up with what you're doing. But when you're outside doing things like an inclusion group, getting in a women's network, getting in a tech network, maybe doing something, getting in Toastmasters, right? Like you're meeting so many more people that have something similar that you're working on that you don't get that just coming to work every day. And so you get more mentors, you get more access to people in higher places, and
That's what I
it's
was gonna say.
easier to talk to them. Yeah.
That's what I was saying too. I was gonna just double click on that. Your access to leaders is so much, your net is so much wider. Like you said, you can be on, like I was on G Beam and one of the other leaders was like the top SC like of the entire company. And it's like, in any other regard, it's like I'm bugging him or I'm like trying to like talk to him or don't know how to approach it. But whereas when I was in G Beam, it was like, oh, you lead this committee, I lead this committee, let's talk. Or we're on weekly meetings together. Or now I'm in all of these different conversations with leaders
Mm-hmm.
from different areas of the company, or I'm learning about different areas of the company. So I definitely feel like that was one of those game changers for me in terms
Mm-hmm.
of my networking and my networks. Because like you said, you're sitting next to a VP or something and they like in the same women's group that you in and they just
Yep.
here to listen and learn, or now you are a leader in this and they're listening to you and you're influencing them, or you get to showcase
Right.
your strengths to them in a different way, and now they vouching for you. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? They finding you opportunities because they think that
Look.
you're amazing. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I agree. That's a great way
It
to
is.
impact your leadership and get some internal champions and some
I
unsolicited
got
mentors.
them.
Look,
Yes.
they might not know, but like we about to meet up.
Look, I was being in G Beam. Look, we just had a mentor program. I'm the first mentor I had was like a director, being a part of the
Yeah.
mentor program. After being involved in G Beam, the last mentor I had was an SVP.
Wow. Yeah.
And this SVP was excited to have me because they already knew the work that I had. What? Come on now. And that wasn't because you knew what training I built. That's because you knew what I did in G Beam. I had more influence over there than I had in my role. Girl, get
And it's like
involved.
earn respect. You get what I'm saying? Like they already respect you if they
Yeah, yeah,
already
yeah,
see you
yeah.
in different capacity. And
Mm-hmm.
just the fact that you're going above and beyond to volunteer to help another cause at work or to be involved and get that visibility,
Mm-hmm.
it's so
Yeah.
many benefits to getting involved. I definitely agree with that. So you said you had a mentor that was a SVP, but I mean, we all have like really good mentors, right? That we've all
Mm-hmm.
had that shaped us. But who do you feel like is a mentor who helped you to lead with clarity and courage And what do you feel like their best piece of advice was?
Can I pick two? Look.
Okay, yeah.
So I would say, and I don't mind calling them out by name. So I will say, then I say, oh, two, three. Look, okay, never mind. I have my near and dear mentor, Jen Taylor, who was my old boss. You met Jen.
Yeah.
I love, yeah, love Jennifer Taylor. And there's never a time that I talk to her that she doesn't drop a gem on me. She's always telling me something. And the one I take from her, her and I were in a meeting together. It's back when I was her, when I worked for her. We were in a meeting together and she used to doodle when she was in meetings. It was part of her helping her anxiety and things like this. And she drew this post-it note. And it says, solutions have you ever? And she was in the meeting, she's thinking like, can we just get to a solution? Because we kept talking in circles in this meeting. And what that taught me is that, okay, we can talk in circles, but let's figure out a solution. So we're going to go for solutions, not just continue to talk about problems. I still have that post-it note till this day. The exact one that she drew in that meeting is with me. It sits on my cork board. I can look at it every single day. Solutions have you ever? Then my next one is going to be Daniel Phelps, the SVP I was talking about. I was a little anxious to meet him at first because I was like, "Oh goodness, what is this going to be like?" He's on talent. He's the head of talent acquisition and data. And I was like, okay, so what is this guy going to be like? I don't know. But he was so humble and so amazing. And the best advice that he gave me, we were talking about promotions. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, like, I want to get promoted. I want to move up. Like, I'm trying to boost my career. I would love to stay here, but I'm wondering if this is going to be I don't want to say my forever home, but if I can stay here longer because I don't see the trajectory. And his thought processes behind it, he was like, but you got to remember what's happening. Like, think about it like this. In order for you to get promoted, the business has to have the capacity to promote you. What happens when a business doesn't have the capacity to promote you and they promote you? Then you're promoted. But guess what? Within next 6 months to a year, you're probably going to be let go because they didn't have the backing, the support, the money, the value to have promoted you in the first place, right? But if you can create value as an associate. You can build the business case for your position by doing your work, by implementing the practices, by showing the value, demonstrating the value, and you can work yourself into a promotion. And I was like, hmm, okay, okay, okay. So what I'm hearing you say is that I can, in fact, make my own position. I just have to show the value.
Yeah, that's a game changer.
Best advice. Stop sitting here waiting on these people to give you a promotion. Start working towards what it is that you want to do. And if you don't see the value, they don't see the value.
Agree. I agree. I definitely feel like you have to show and bring the value. And if you don't show it and bring it, they're not gonna just pick you out and
Yeah, they're
promote
not gonna do it.
because I'm
Mm-mm.
cute. I still got to work hard. But so speaking of post-it notes and mentors, you struck a chord. I wanted you to keep going because you was cooking. But I actually have a post-it note here from one of my mentors that I keep with me
Really?
as well. And it's Michael Dennis. Michael Dennis is
Love
one of my
Michael
mentors.
Dennis.
I love Michael Dennis. I'm gonna have him on in a couple weeks. But
Okay.
one of the quotes that he told me that really stuck with me is failing just means I'm closer to success. And
Yeah.
that is something that is like near and dear to my heart because, you know, when you go through challenges, only focus on the challenge, but you never think about, I learned this lesson and now the next time I'm going to be better. Or just as you look back, when you think about all the things that were a no or a failure, and then what came next was much bigger and much greater. You hopped higher, you ran longer.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something that stuck with me when he said it, just like struck a chord. Like failing just means I'm closer to success because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
most people look at failure as the end. And it's like, no, you
Mm-hmm.
actually, right now, that's the good thing. 'Cause now you're closer to where you're going than you were when you was on the wrong path or when you was trying it a different way. So
Yeah.
and then one of the things that me and you talked about, we talk all the time. We were talking about leadership and as I'm going through these interviewing process and just different things like that, I was picking your brain. And one of the things that you told me, I was looking through my notes, and you said that it's important to show how you set others up and yourself for success. And that's
Mhm.
something that stayed with me as well, because when I think about leadership, that's really what it's about, right? Like, not
Mhm.
showing my bravado or my ego or I've done all these things. It's like, how did I set other people up for
Mhm.
success? And how did I set myself up for success? And that was
Right.
something that stuck with me and it sticks with me as I'm just continuing to, interact with different parts of, the world, my life. It's just like, how are you showing up and setting other people up for success to get your slam done? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not
Mhm.
always that, but how are you, improving upon?
Absolutely. All the
And
time.
I loved every second of our conversation. I know that our listeners are going to walk away with so much, but before we go, I'm gonna do
Yeah.
a few rapid fire questions.
Oh,
They just fun and easy. So one, I don't know, are you a coffee drinker or no?
I love coffee.
Okay. Okay. So what's your go-to coffee order? That's the first question.
Well, I'm gonna say if I'm at Starbucks, a Pike Place with sugar-free vanilla and almond milk.
Okay.
That,
Okay.
that most
Okay.
basic order. Hmm.
Okay. Okay. What is a quote that fuels your leadership?
Not my monkey, not my circus.
Okay. And then the last question that we have is, what's one way we can all show up more boldly this week?
Be yourself, truly and
Be
authentically.
Okay, awesome. Words from a wise woman. We're gonna leave it at that. Okay, thanks
Thank you,
so much.
DeAndrea.
Thanks so much. Listeners, take what you heard today and sip on that, whether it's mentoring somebody new, learning a new skill, or simply showing up more boldly this week. Own your seat, and until next time, stay authentic, stay curious, and keep leading over coffee. All right, thanks,
Yes.
y'all. See you next time.